Hi, so a very warm welcome to everyone on this bank holiday Monday. Lovely to see you all. So my name's Lisa, you haven't met me, and we are down in Effra Space in Brixton, and we were really lucky because we've got a really good in-house class as well, so welcome everybody here too, and we're really happy to have you at home as well. So what we've got, sort of set out for tonight is that we're continuing with our Starting Afresh meditation series, where we're having the chance to really get back to basics and some of the core meditation practices. So it's completely suitable for newcomers, but also hopefully for regulars too. I mean, personally, I always find it really helpful just to, really go back to the foundations of our main practices, and every time I find something new or maybe to explore something a bit more. So whatever your state of practice is, we really hope that there'll be something useful that you get out of the class tonight. So what we're planning to do is, the theme for this week is the metta practice. So this is a complementary practice that we've done to the previous 2 weeks, where we focused on the mindfulness of breathing, which is really around developing our awareness. And metta goes hand in hand with that because it's the emotional aspects of awareness. It's a sort of like a metta is the Pali word for loving kindness. So it's basically about, the awareness that we're bringing to things, like trying to cultivate a warmth and a friendliness and an engagement about that. And one image for that I found really helpful is almost to think about the two practices of being like wings of a bird. So you've got awareness, and then you've got like metta, the sort of the feeling tone attached to that. So we'll be able to unpack that a bit later in the session today, and we'll also have a couple of guided practices just to help us open up to that sort of like feeling tone in our experience as well. So if you're listening in at home, do please shout out in the chat, and we will come back to you later. And I'm really lucky tonight to be joined by Jack, who's like helping with some of the class and everything. So yeah, he's going to help with the shout outs later, or are we going to ask Emma to do it?
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant, you've got the computer set up, fantastic. So yeah, great. Well, let's start off without any further ado with our first meditation. And our first meditation is going to be a really short practice, what we call the breathing space. And the breathing space is just simply to help us arrive into the room. It can be a really helpful practice to do at any time of your day, if you just want to put in a pause really to give yourself a chance, kind of gather yourself and connect to yourself before moving on to the next stage. So I will talk you all through that. So if we start off just by setting up a posture that's going to be helpful for us to sit in for a few minutes. So if you're sitting on the floor, then just paying attention to the feeling of your lower body on the floor. If you're sitting on the chair, to your feet. And just thinking about then getting a sense of uplift from your upper body. So perhaps lifting up your spine, just very gently, without a sense of strain. Can certainly help in the evening time to help us feel a bit more awake, I think, if we lift ourselves up a bit. But if we pay attention to our shoulders and just let go of any effort there, so that our shoulders feel nice and flexible. And perhaps pulling in our chin slightly, so that the top of the head that sort of falls into alignment with the ceiling above, so that it's parallel to that. And just letting your hands rest in your laps, so that you let go of any effort in your arms and your hands. And if it feels okay to do so, just allowing your eyes to close. And allowing the muscles in your face, around your eyes and around your mouth, just to soften gently. And in the first step of the breathing space, we're just trying to bring awareness to whatever's going on for us right now. So just noticing what our experience is like in this moment. So noticing any sensations in the body. Could be the contact with the floor, or the cushion or the chair. Noticing how we're feeling right now. Physical sensations do we notice? What emotions do we notice? And whether we're experiencing pleasant feelings or unpleasant feelings, or just not particularly feeling anything at all, that's absolutely fine. We're not trying to judge or analyse our experience, just noticing it. Just seeing if we can allow whatever is here just to be here. And noticing now what thoughts are coming and going in and out of our minds. And again, trying as best we can not to get caught up in them, but just to notice them as they come and go. And having checked in with our experience a bit, we can now move on to the second stage of the practice, which is gathering our awareness around our breathing. So noticing one point in the body where we can sense the breath moving in and out. So it could be in the nose, or in the throat, in the chest, or deep down in the abdomen. Doesn't matter where. Just allowing your attention to gather in this place where you notice the breath. And noticing the different physical sensations of breathing in and out. And you don't have to change how you're breathing. How you're breathing is absolutely fine. It's keeping you alive. We're just trying to notice it. Notice what's already here. The breath moving in and out. And you might notice that your mind's wandered off your breathing. You're caught up with thinking or listening or any other feelings or sensations. And that's fine too. It's just what our minds do. They jump about from one thing to another all the time. And when we notice that, we're back in awareness again. So we can just flag up quickly where our mind's gone, and then gently come back again to following the breathing in and out. Noticing the richness of the breath and all the different physical sensations that make up every stage of the breath. And now we'll move on to the third and final stage of the breathing space, which is expanding our awareness now throughout the whole body. So still aware of the breath, but aware too now, zooming out to take in the whole body. From your feet or legs on the floor, right up through the whole of your sitting posture to the crown of your head. having a sense of the space your body takes up and the boundary between the skin and the space outside the skin. And the breath flowing in and out freely, in and out of that space. Perhaps imagining your breath flowing in and out the very pores in the skin. The whole body breathing. Noticing this more spacious awareness. And when you hear the bell, bringing the practice to a close. Thank you, everybody. So what we're going to do now is that Jack and I are going to have a bit of a conversation together just around some of the things around the metta practice and what metta is and some ideas for how to develop it. And then that will set us up then for a longer period of practice, which will give us a chance to sort of explore some of the things we're talking about in a sort of body-based meditation. Then the first half of our session here will come to a close and we'll have a break, and we'll be saying goodbye to everybody at home, and then for everybody here there'll be a chance to do another practice after the break then, and we'll say a bit more about that later. But for now, thank you so much, Jack, for coming and you know being part of this tonight.
Well, yeah. Thanks for having me.
It's a good point, isn't it? Because it's something I think which, you know, does sound different. Whereas our other main practice, the mindfulness of breathing, I think is quite intuitive, isn't it? We can have a sense about, you know, we know what mindfulness means, we know what breathing is, we can kind of put it together. Whereas metta bhavana is, you know, it's probably in a language which, you know, we might not know. So we can think about that in two parts too. So metta is this word that, I mean, it's a really hard word to translate really, but some of the words which we think, which are traditionally associated, are things like sort of loving kindness, or you can think about it as this sort of friendly interest. It's this sort of universal, sort of positive emotion which we aim to bring to all aspects of our experience. So that's the metta part. And then bhavana simply means cultivation. So you can see the meditation as a practice to help us cultivate this sense of metta.
And you mentioned the mindfulness of breathing, the other main practice.
I think it's a really good point, isn't it? Because I think certainly how I come into meditation originally was through things like mindfulness-based, like cognitive therapy and stuff, and that's very focused on the mindfulness. And you know, at that time you didn't do any metta practice at all, because I think the idea is that in mindfulness, the implicit quality of that is one of metta. So in a way, they do go hand in hand. But you know, the awareness we bring to things is one that's infused with this like sort of warmth and friendly interest and kindness, and that you know, it doesn't make sense to think of it on its own. Because I think that the danger you can sometimes have if you just focus on awareness is thinking about, you know, what's the quality of that awareness. Because sometimes if we're really paying attention to something, sometimes that can be sort of associated with a kind of like a scanning mode, if you see what I mean. That might be how we experience things if we're feeling kind of in threat mode. Like if you think about what happens to the body, if we are feeling like really anxious, or if it's in like fight or flight mode, you do get this like really narrow, precise attention, because you're like sort of scanning to see what's around, what you need to look out for to keep yourself safe. And I think that sometimes the like if you haven't got the sort of the more like sort of warm open-heartedness that comes with the metta practice, then you can almost get this like really sort of tight, narrow, cold awareness that is quite alienated from a sense of, you know, like sort of being in connection to other people. And again, sometimes you see, like you sort of read about sometimes how like things like mindfulness or meditation can be misapplied. Like mindfulness, you sometimes get it called where you take the concepts, but then you use them in like a more corporate sense. And so like I've read of things like, you know, mindfulness being used. I mean, I'm not sure if it's true or not, it could just be like, because I hope in a way, it's not true, like in the army in some countries, for example, like to help people with sniper practice and things like that. And that for me sums up really well the sort of the dangers, I think, of just focusing on mindfulness, which can help develop awareness and things, but then can lead you in a state then which is quite alien. Because I think why we sort of really emphasise the importance of metta is that, you know, from the Buddhist time and things, that's been seen as like our natural emotional state. So that you know, we're sort of designed as humans in a way to be in connection with other people. We're social animals, so metta's a natural expression of that.
And something I've also definitely found is that
That's a really good example, isn't it? Because I think for me, there's two things in that I think about as you say that, and it's about like the sort of like our love for ourselves in doing the practice, isn't it? Because I think again, if we are being mindful and we're trying to do like the mindfulness of breathing, but without like cultivating any kind of metta at all, then it's very easy to like sort of not be patient with ourselves, isn't it? And you know, so I mean, this happens to me like virtually every day. I'll be sitting down for practice, and my intention will be is that I'm going to remain focused for the whole of the practice, and within 5 minutes or less, usually, my mind's off somewhere else. And in that moment, I think that there's two ways that could go, isn't it? It could be that, you know, I'll go down like what's quite a habitual route for me of being quite critical and thinking, oh, I'm doing that wrong. And then, you know, that's taking me further away then from the practice because I'm caught up in that then. And then I'm becoming tighter and more contracted, and it's, you know, not what I intended. Or in that moment, we can bring this metta, this sort of like, you know, understanding for ourselves that, you know, this is what happens and that it is difficult and it's a normal experience, and also an appreciation for ourselves that we've put this time and effort in to doing something that is, you know, something positive. So I think that is why, you know, the metta is really important for our mindfulness practice. But also what you're saying as well about, you know, just that it helps you get more interested in it. Because I think it's that emotional aspect which really helps us engage with it as well, so that it doesn't become just something, an exercise we're doing that's quite heady, and that we are trying to engage with it with our heart and everything. And sometimes when I think about when we are really, really mindful, I think that's for me when I see just how closely the practices are really entwined. Like if you are like really outside and you're caught up, like for me, I really like being out in nature, and if I'm really caught up and I'm looking at like the flowers or something around me and I'm very aware of them, but there's like this like sort of like real sense of warmth and love for everything around me that comes with that, and it would be hard for me to separate it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's this one teacher in our tradition, Vidyamala, who also like does like a lot of brilliant work around like mindfulness, like for pain and everything. She sometimes talks about, like, uses the metaphor of the sea. So you have the water of the sea, but it's like saturated with salt. And then you can't, like, well, I mean, you can, but I mean, it comes automatically together that there's salt in the sea. And that's a bit like awareness and metta, that it is like the metal is saturated in the water. I really like that image.
I think
I think that's the hope. But I mean, I think that's a really good point, because I think this comes up a lot, doesn't it? Because I think sometimes we'll think of people who are like ideals of, like, I mean, you know, like metta or compassion for things like that. And, you know, like we might think about like the Buddha, or like, you know, some of the Buddha archetypes, or people who are particularly associated with, like, you know, metta and compassion, like, I don't know, like Mother Teresa, or like Gandhi, or like the Dalai Lama sometimes come up, don't they, in our cultures being particularly associated with these. And I think that can set a really high bar. And we can think then, again, that, you know, there's nowhere I'll ever be like that. And if, like, we think that our habitual experience is about sometimes being quite irritable or something like that, then it can seem like, no, this is just the way I am. And I think that this is where I think like Buddhism really comes in, actually, because it's like, you know, the basic like sort of premise of that, one of them, is that change is possible. We can change. Is that, you know, how we respond to things is just a product of lots of different conditions that can relate to our experience or our habits of thinking and feeling, and that, you know, we can create, you know, new habits and stuff. That is why we call the meditation practices, because we're practicing something different. And again, another image I really like, another metaphor, is thinking about these practices as planting seeds. Because again, I think like when I first started meditating, I think I wanted, like, you know, instant results, and then, you know, it didn't happen, and I wondered whether I was doing it right. But I suppose, you know, often these things do take time. If how we respond to different like situations or people or ourselves is something that we've had years of practice building up, then it takes you, you know, a fair bit of time to learn new habits. Whereas, you know, if we think of things that by doing something different, by trying to respond in different ways, you know, it's like planting seeds. And even if we don't see the instant results, it's kind of with the trust that, you know, new things will come out of that.
So how do we?
I mean, there's like lots of different ways, and I think so we will be focusing over the next couple of weeks on this particular practice, the meta-bhavana practice, and I'll say something about that in a minute, and we're not doing the full practice today. We've got that, it's a spoiler for next week, come next week and you'll get the full practice. We're just doing the groundwork for that a bit today. So there's the meditation practice, but I'm a big believer. I think that when I think back about, you know, what I find helpful in my practice, of course, it's the more formal practices, but it's also about thinking about how we can put these into practice in every day. So for me, like a sort of a daily life version of like the sort of the cultivating loving kindness practice that I was trying like to do in like lockdown was because I work for the NHS, so I was travelling into work every day. And so I've noticed, like when I was on the train, that I was starting to get a bit judgy about people who weren't wearing masks and stuff. And so like I sort of had as my intention that like everybody I saw on my commute every day, regardless of who they were, whether they were wearing masks or not, I would like just sort of wish well in my mind and would, you know, just give them a smile and everything. And that to me, I felt really did have an effect. It certainly had an effect on me and helped me like sort of start the day in a much like sort of warmer emotional state. But I also noticed it seemed to be having an effect, like people would sometimes smile back, or it just, you know, it did really feel like it made a difference. And I always have this image in my mind that it can almost be like a sort of a ripple effect with metta, and if we can like start the day just with a smile at somebody, then maybe that will make their day a bit better, and they might like, you know, do like a smile at somebody else or do something else, and then it can go, you know, out really wide. So I think, yeah, that's something that's really important to me as well, is that we don't have to be doing these big things, is that, you know, any small act of the sort of natural kindness or friendliness or connection that we might have in our daily lives, we have all the conditions already, we already are doing these things. It's about thinking about just how we can open that a bit more fully.
Yeah, that made me think.
That's absolutely right. It reminds me of another one of our teachers in our tradition, Baby Paksha. He talks a lot about this difficult business of being human, and it is exactly that, isn't it? That you know, at some level, we are essentially in the same boat, and you know, it's just having that awareness. And I think if we can hold that awareness, it just sort of enables us just to open up a bit and engage and feel a bit more connected, and then brings us into that like sort of deepening of awareness that we're trying to get with the mindfulness of breathing. It just all comes together a bit. Thank you.
Do you want to take it away?
I shall attempt to. Okay, so what we're going to do for this longer period of meditation is simply like, as I said, we're going to do the full metta-bhavana, which is in different stages next week. But we're just going to set up for that because I think it's a really good way of setting up the practice generally in just like tuning in to, you know, what's already here in our experience. And I think we're going to start off by focusing on the body, because I think the body is like, you know, it's a really important like sort of gauge of our emotional experiences, and you know, we can really use it to help develop our awareness. And then, you know, at the end of that, we're going to call to mind just an everyday example we have of metta, of a time that's happened, like, you know, it might be easiest if it's recently, but any time that comes to mind, you know, just a time when we have felt metta, either for ourselves or for somebody else. And, you know, it could be like just this small moment of connection with that feeling. It doesn't have to be anything big. And we're just going to sit with that and notice how it feels in the body for a few minutes. And then, then we'll have time just to come back at the end, and we'll be able to acknowledge who's showing up, like at home as well. So just a quick word about posture. So as we said, we've got like really good videos on posture on our YouTube channel, so do have a look at that. And you know, again, over time you'll develop like sort of a sense of what type of posture works for you. The kind of balance that we're aiming for is feeling comfortable, because you know, if discomfort can distract us, and it's not, you know, we don't want to be sitting through pain, but also about trying to balance that with a sense of alertness, trying to get a bit of sense of uplift in your posture, to keep you awake as well, which I always find is important for me if I'm meditating late in the evening. And particularly with the metta practice, I think, you know, it can be really helpful to focus on a posture at the start, simply because, again, if we think about like how our physiology like sort of can contribute to our emotional states, then you know, if we are sitting tense, then again that's associated with like this sort of more like sort of biological fight or flight mode, so it might you know, make it more difficult for us to like sort of open up and relax. So I think it is quite helpful to just focus at the start of the practice on like you know, like feeling like sort of having a sense of openness in the chest and everything, and just like making sure that we have let go of any tension in the shoulders and things, because I think that definitely helps us get into a more expansive space. And as well, it can be really helpful to pay attention at the beginning to like our facial muscles too, because again, if we can just like sort of imagine those softening up a bit around our eyes, or if it feels okay to soften our mouths up into a slight smile, then again that's like sort of helps us like sort of cue that you know, we're trying to cultivate like a sense of friendliness and everything, and again it can help make us you know, more expansive and feel a bit more warm. But again, if we don't feel like that, and we won't sometimes, then that's absolutely fine too. It's just about having a sense of acceptance and interest in whatever we're feeling. So yeah, let's set up the practice. So tuning in again to how we're sitting, letting gravity to roll our bodies into the floor, using the physical contact with the floor to help ground us. Seeing our lower bodies like the roots of a mountain, strong and stable and rooted into the ground. And then seeing our upper body like the sides of a mountain, so it's having a sense of our upper body lifting up from the roots, but without a sense of tension or overstretching, just naturally lifting ourselves up. And imagine our heads, perhaps like the top of the mountain, with the crown of our heads like the summit, reaching up to the open sky above us. of the breath moving in and out of our body, the breathing mountain, as we sit here for a minute, aware of our physical sensations of sitting and breathing. Now bringing our attention back down our bodies to our feet. And just noticing the physical sensations in the feet. Be the contact with the floor, sensations in each of the toes, the gaps between the toes, sensations on the soles of the feet, if it's tingling, or warmth, or coolness. So many different nerve endings in the soles of the feet. And just being open to whatever we can sense from them. If we don't notice anything in particular, then that's absolutely fine too, just being aware of that. We're really not trying to achieve anything in particular. We're just trying to cultivate this sense of friendly interest in whatever our experience is, or whatever our experience isn't. It's all good. Noticing sensations on the top of our feet. It's where the skin is stretched over all the complex little bones in our feet. And the heel and the back of the feet. Holding the whole of our feet in awareness now. As we breathe in and out. Allowing our attention now to shift into the ankles. Feeling the boniness there. And shifting up into the lower legs. Feeling the shin bones at the front and the fleshier calves at the back. Holding the whole of the lower legs in awareness. And just noticing all and any sensations here. Bringing our attention to the knees, kneecaps at the front, and the soft crease at the back of our knees. Moving up to the upper legs, Having a sense of the strong thigh muscles, femur, not just pain in the body, and the skin, the nerve endings around it. The sensations on the surface of the skin, and beneath the skin. Holding the whole of the thighs in awareness from the knees right up to the hip bones. Allowing the attention to move up into the pelvic area, the hips, and our sitting bones against the chair, the cushion, the whole of the pelvic girdle. And moving up into the lower back. Noticing the curve at the bottom of the back. To have a sensation to here. Often we might feel achiness or tiredness or tension here. But whatever we notice, as best we can, folding it into our awareness with kindness and warmth. And allowing the attention to slowly travel up our spine, vertebrae by vertebrae. Including the areas on either side of the spine, right up to the upper back, and holding the whole of the back in awareness. Noticing the sensations in our sides. Now shifting our awareness around to the upper body, to the abdomen. Noticing the movement of the breath in the abdomen. So the stretching of the abdominal wall on the in-breath. And the gentle falling away of the abdominal wall on the out-breath. As we allow our attention to gently expand out, to take in the whole of our front of our bodies, including the solar plexus and the heart area and the chest. Just noticing how the whole of the front of our bodies is lifted by the breath as we breathe in. And gently falls away as we breathe out. Expanding our awareness to take in again the sides and the back, as well as the front of the body. Noticing how the whole of this area is gently rocked by the breath. How we can feel the breath in all of these areas, even in the sides and in the back, and in the shoulders. We can gently feel the shoulders tilting back and forth with the breath. Noticing any of the sensations here. Allowing the awareness to travel down the arms, right down to our hands. Noticing any tingling in the palms of the hands. And the fingers, backs of the hands. The wrists. Noticing the sensations in the lower arms, the elbows, and the upper arms. Noticing where our arms are in contact with our upper bodies, sensations of contact. And moving back up through the shoulders into the neck. So we move into the face, noticing the jawline. If we notice any tension in the jaws, and just allowing that to soften a bit. Noticing the sensations in the mouth, both around our lips and then inside the mouth. You feel the tongue in your mouth. And noticing the sensations in the nose, around the eyes, and the forehead, and the cheeks. Holding the whole face in awareness, both the sensations on the surface of the skin and beneath the face. Moving round to the back of the head, where the head first comes out of the neck, right up to the crown of the head. You feel the hair in the head, with the sensations of the air in the room against your head. And expanding out all the attention now to the whole body. Holding the whole of your sitting posture and all those different parts of the body we scan through in a spacious awareness. Noticing the whole breath moving in and out of the body. And the space around the body too. And the contact of that space and the air in the room against the skin. Just sitting here, the whole body breathing. As we sit here, keeping our background awareness and the whole body breathing, inviting you to call to mind this recollection of a time when you have a sense of metta, sense of loving kindness, sense of connection with yourself or someone else. It could be a fleeting moment, or a more extended moment, whatever it is that naturally comes to mind. And just allowing that memory to fill your awareness for a minute. Calling it to mind as vividly as you can. Doesn't matter whether you can visually see it, but seeing if you can just have a sense of it in some way. Just calling to mind what happened. Gave you the sense of metta. And as you call it to mind, just noticing the effect it has in your body. This body we've been bringing our awareness to. Trying to explore a bit more the sensations we habitually feel in the body. Noticing now what effect it has of thinking of this time when we felt a moment of metta. Where can we feel that in the body? Does that memory come with any sensations of lightness, fluttering or warmth, of openness, of softening? And if it doesn't, that's fine too. Just holding the memory and awareness and just allowing ourselves to engage with it a bit more. And just noticing whatever effects may or may not be present with that. Seeing if bringing the memory to mind helps us reconnect with that sense of metta. Just bathing in that a bit, allowing ourselves to experience that again, savouring it. Noticing what that's like. Noticing any thoughts that come along with the experience too. And opening to those, whatever they may be. And then allowing memory just to gently fade to the background of your awareness again. And for the last few moments of the practice, just sitting and noticing whatever comes up in your experience, the effects of the practice. Just sitting with whatever's going on. And then when you hear the bell, bringing the practice to an end. And perhaps also having a sense in these last moments of the practice of the other people practicing alongside you as well. And then preparing to bring the practice to a close. Thank you, everybody. Check. Nice to hear about who's back at home tuning in. If anybody is on this bank holiday night.
Have you got anyone there?
No.
So this is the first time since lockdown that there are no shout-outs. So if you're watching this back, not live, then we sorely missed you. But yeah, I guess we can finish early.
Yeah. Well, yes, if you watch this later, thank you for tuning in. Yeah, so we're going to have a break in a minute. Again, if you're watching it at home, please do consider coming to like our classes in person if you can. It'd be really nice to have you here. And Emma will put the links for that in the chat. Thank you, Emma. And also just a quick word before we finish, just around the basis of the classes. So obviously, like, classes are open to everybody. We want everybody to feel really welcome here, and you know, we offer these classes for free. At the same time, you know, we're powered by your generosity. So Emma will put a link in the chat so that if you do feel moved to make a donation, then you're able to do that. And thank you in advance if, you know, for any donations you do make. So we will bid you a fond farewell tonight online, and hope to see you again soon. So thank you very much for that. Bye bye.